So last lesson we talked about the problem that even though I call the method, I'm actually going to return undefined because it doesn't actually wait right now until that we are done saving the client. It just runs the method and just returns right away. This lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to use async await to solve that problem. So let's convert this method into an actual method that ends up returning a promise that I can use somewhere else. So in order to do that, we'll just start by adding the async keyword right here. The async keyword means that this method is going to be an asynchronous method that we're going to build. Now notice right away it complains because if you want to use an asynchronous method in TypeScript, you need to wrap this guy in a promise. So we'll just make this into a promise right away. And that means that what we're going to return in the very end of this asynchronous method is going to be a promise. If you don't want to return anything, you can do the same thing and just put void in here to say you don't want to return anything, but it's still going to be a promise. Sweet. Now with this in place, we need to figure out a way to kind of return that promise right here. One thing I get as a mistake right away is that I'm using an interface. So we have to kind of update the interface in order to start using this. So what we'll do is we'll take this and copy it into our primary port interface. And here we'll just paste it in here. So this will be changed to a promise instead of just a chat client. We're not done yet because now everything is green again and we are happy, but there's still something missing. First of all, how will I handle this? Well, right now I'll just return the chat client and actually automatically Nest will convert this into a promise for me. So that's pretty neat. That'll work. But as we keep going, there's another problem down here because here I actually want to wait for this before we actually return it. So I have to start doing something in order to do that. Now what we can do is actually pretty neat. Instead of using the then keyword, let's just get rid of all of this. We can actually say, when you get that client back, we can actually just await for him. So what I'll do is I'll say client equals, and then I'll await for this client right here. So that pretty much means that I will stop the code from executing. And don't worry, it's not going to stop the main thread. It's just going to stop this code right here from continuing to the next line. Still on its own thread somewhere. It's going to wait until we get a reply, and then we'll go to the next line with an actual client right here. And the only difference between this client and this client when we save it is that now it actually has an ID. So the final thing we need to do now is just return the client, and we're going to do it just like we did before. We're going to just add curly brackets right here because this is going to be a chat client. It's going to have the ID that the client has, and it's going to have the nickname that the client has. So that should be all we have to do in order to make this work right here. Now notice, right now my chat client is actually of the type string. So we have an error right here. So what I'll do is just a very quick fix for now. We'll change this later. I'll just add a small plus here to make this ID into a string instead of a number. So that's all we had to do to kind of asynchronously await for that reply, save it locally, and then convert it into a chat client again inside a promise now. So that was kind of to create the service part, but we also have to go to the gateway and await this new thing that just happened. Luckily, we can just add the async here as well. Async, like this. And we'll just say we're going to return a promise here instead of nothing. We're going to return the promise of the type void again because we're actually not going to return anything. We just need to explain to the system that it's going to be a promise. The next thing we'll do is we're going to explain that we want to await this call to be finished. Then we'll get the chat client, and then we'll actually get the right client back, right? Let's just try and see if this runs now. I'll go back and I'll add Bilbo again. I'll do a send. And notice I actually got into the system. Why? Because I actually got chat client Bilbo printed right here, meaning I waited for this to complete before I went to the next line. That's how simple it is. So we're still not done yet, but that was how we can use the async await to, without synchronously stopping our main thread, we can just in code say for different places in the code, await for this to happen, and then continue to the next line of code. That's pretty neat. So that's how async await works. And now with this in place, you should actually be able to complete the guide of these steps you got right here for creating, deleting, finding, and everything else. But I have a few more things I want to show you in the next lesson. So you know what? See you next time. Bye.